Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. I'm back on the Series S and I've set up my MIAP Pro for many different autopilot functions. As you can see, I'm in heading mode at the moment. So if you look up here, you can see I'm in autopilot and heading mode. All work fine. I can turn autopilot on and off, of course. I can turn heading mode on and off. And there we go, we're back in heading mode, so I can follow that. Things like setting up, if you look at this figure up here, an autopilot reference altitude, let's 2,500, and things like vertical speed, so we can climb to that. And flight level change mode, so that when we take off, we can climb to that as well. And if you look here, let's just change it to nav. I can change my nav frequencies and swap them round. And I can even go to Comm, so if you look on this side now for your Comm radios, I can change them in and out and swap them as well. All different kinds of autopilot setups for the MIAP Pro. I'm not going to go too deep in this video with it. I'm going to set up some of the more basic autopilot functions. Well, you know, things like nav and comm are a little bit more advanced, but most of the basic autopilot functions for new owners of the MIAP Pro, or those tempted to buy it, I may come back in the future and do a more advanced video. So let's not dilly-dally, let's get on with this video. Okay, so I'm set up at Leeds Bradford Airport. Any old airport will do for this test. One thing you must do though, if you go to settings, settings and controls. So just in settings, controls, make sure you got your keyboard selected. I don't have a keyboard plugged in, by the way. People have asked that. Do you need a keyboard plugged in alongside it? No, it integrates with the default keyboard settings. Soon as you plug your MIAP Pro in, it'll come up keyboard even though you don't have a keyboard connected. And many of the settings will integrate with it. What you do need to make sure is that the keyboard is on 2020 transversal. I've got a test set up there where I've been testing. But typically it'll be on 2024 transversal. Both of them. 2024 planes. You want to change it to 2020. Both of them. And if I go back there and resume. So I've got no settings set up for it, only the default. Things like autopilot. If I press, I'll show you a picture on screen and I'm going to show you what buttons, I'll circle which buttons work. I could have actually filmed me pressing the buttons, but it's a tiny unit and it's a difficult one to record. So you get a much better representation if I show you that picture. Autopilot button works. That's fine. Altitude, you've got an altitude knob there. So if you look, just show you with the mouse here, if you look on this part here, that works as well. So you could change your autopilot reference altitude. Vertical speed button doesn't work. If you look at the picture there, pressing the vertical speed button, that doesn't work. We're going to have to set that up, which we will do in a moment. Your heading knob. So if you look down below here, so you can see that blue marker working. It is quite slow. Let's just move that mouse out of the way. That's going to get distracting. It is quite slow to get it around, but once you have it synced to your autopilot heading, it's actually quite nice to use the heading knob. So that works, but heading knob itself, I'm pressing the heading knob button rather, the button for heading select. As you can see here, it's not gone into heading select. So we're going to have to set that up. I believe approach works as well. Comm and nav frequencies. Nope. I'm just moving the comm the frequency knob left and right, and that's not working. So there's a few different things we're going to have to set up. Let's start with the basics first. By the way, just to show you, if I go into settings and keyboard, controls, settings, keyboard, and I change this to 2024 transversal, you're going to find I'm just moving the buttons now, pressing autopilot's not working, moving my altitude knob. The altitude knob works fine. Heading knob doesn't. So there's a couple of different bindings. Now, it's up to you. I would recommend going back again. Just had to show you that part because people might be wondering. Go to controls. Under keyboard. Change that to 2020 transversal and 2020 planes. And a good number of the buttons will work by default. So there you go. Autopilot on and off. As I showed you before, heading. So moving the heading bug, I can see the heading bug moving. Altitude, I can change that. And a couple of other buttons work. Okay, so let's set up. What should we set up first? So we want some heading, select setup, and vertical speed. So we'll go to settings. There we go. And controls. And keyboard, we have that selected. We can actually select it from here. Scroll down to autopilot. So in your main menu here under controls, make sure you got your keyboard selected. And these are on 2020 transversal and planes. Autopilot. And heading. Toggle heading hold. See, there's nothing set up for it. So I'll show you a picture on screen where we're going to set that. It's underneath the heading knob. It's a heading button. Click in there and heading. And you're going to have to rename the profile. We're going to call this MIAP 1. Don't worry about capitals unless you're particularly wanting to do that. There you go. MIAP 1. I put my controller down. I've got everything set up where I can see what I'm doing here, thankfully. Okay, so there we go. So that's set up. We can test that in a moment. I just want to get to vertical speed while I'm here and set that up as well. Toggle vertical speed. You can see that's not set up. So I'll show you on screen there. The button is just below the vertical screen knob. Vertical speed button. Press that. And that's set up. Go back, save, and back. We can test that. So, heading mode. Just going to move my heading knob round. You can see, just look down here. Moving that heading bug around. That's fine. Look up here now. If I press the heading button, heading is selected. So if I was up in the air, it'll be following my heading mode. Press the vertical speed button. There you go, vertical speed. Now I can affect my vertical speed. There you go. By the way, if I press there's an IAS, let me show you on screen. IAS knob and button. That's for flight level change. But it actually brings up the vertical speed, the IAS. It's not what I want. I want it to bring up my flight level change. So I'm just going to go to the main menu or settings. Go to settings, controls, and I'm going to go into scroll down, so hopefully I'm not going too fast. Make sure your keyboard is selected and controls. Scroll down to autopilot. We'll get to flight level change. There we go, flight level change, and toggle flight level change. And it's that button underneath the IAS knob, indicated airspeed knob. I'm going to click that, and there we go. That one's set. Let's go back, save and back, and resume. Now if I click that IAS button, there you go, flight level change has come up here. If I move the knob above that, you can now see we can set an autopilot flight level change for the autopilot to climb to once we take off and put it into autopilot mode. Let's turn autopilot off for now. And there we go. We can set that to 74 knots. So if we took off now, pressed autopilot, it will climb us safely at 74 knots to our autopilot reference altitude. If we don't want that, we can always put vertical speed on. Now flight level change is turned off, and we can set our flight vertical speed. So there you go. That's some of the functions set up. Let's continue. Okay, so let's set up now our nav radios and comm radios. So there we go. What we're going to do, we're going to go to settings. Go to settings. We'll do our comm radio first. Settings, controls. Make sure you got the keyboard selected and that you've followed part 1. So we've got a rename profile, MIAP 1 there. We're just going to go into the top one there, radio. And comms. Now there's a bit of a caveat with this one, people. I'll show you on screen. There's a button that swaps between comm and nav. What I'm going to do, I'm going to search by input and press that button. And nothing will come up for it. By default, I don't know how it does it. It's like a kind of magic. It will swap and give you, well, it will give you different instructions. It's not, so it's not actually a control that's registered in Flight Sim 2024 or Flight Sim 2020. But as soon as you press that button, it will give you a different set of commands for the frequency knob next to it. Just get your head around that one. It's a bit difficult to explain, but there's no actual command set up. There's no input set up for that button itself, swapping between comm and nav. But as soon as you press it, it will give a different keyboard input when you move the frequency knob next to it. I'll show you what that means. I've got that button actually set to comm. So I'm going to look on the comms here. That's the menu I'm in. So let's just go back again. Go to radio. And open comms. You've got decrease COM1 fraction and carry. And increase COM1 fraction and carry. I'll show you what the fraction and carry mean later. But make sure when you're setting these up, you are setting COM1 up. If you're following this video, you can do COM2 as well if you want to get complicated, but I'm not. I'm going to keep this nice and simple. We're just going to set up our COM1 radios. To increase COM1 frequency, I've got that selector set to COM now, that button that swaps between nav and COM. It's on COM1. To increase, I'm going to move the frequency knob next to it to the right. To decrease, I'm going to move that frequency knob to the left. Okay, we've got them set up. What we're going to do, we're just going to type in frequency here. So, sorry, let's go back. I'm going to click into this white box here. And just type in, using my Xbox controller here, in fact, freq. F-R-E-Q. That will do. And it'll bring up many different frequencies. We could have done that from here, in fact, increase and decrease, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to scroll down until I see nav1. Now, ignore them. Let me just, because I was testing this before, and I forgot to unbind them. So let me do that now. That may be blank for you. It may be filled in, but it'll be good to set them back up again, because we're going to have to change something. Remember that button? I'll show you on screen. The button that swaps between nav and comm. I'm going to change that now to nav. Press that button and nav will be highlighted. And what we want to do now we have nav highlighted with that button. We're going to do the same with that frequency knob. And it gives a different set of commands to the sim. It's fantastic, this MIAP. So I can click in this box. Make sure it's increased nav 1 and it's fraction and carry. So just take a moment just to make sure you're setting the right one up. Click in the box, increase, move that knob to the right. Decrease, move it to the left. Shall we go and set that? Test that? We better had. Save and back. Resume. So I'm going to move. I'm in nav mode. So look up here. This specific frequency here. Let's move the mouse out of the way. You can see I'm moving it left and right, and it's increasing and decreasing. Carry means if I get to 90, you see it's 115. If I get to 95, do it one more, it's carried over to 116. So that's what fraction means. The fraction is the number. So that 0.35 at the moment, that's the fraction. If I move it to 0.95, it carries over to 117. That's what fraction carries. And likewise, if I go down, it will fraction and carry downwards. I'm going to hit, so I'll show you on screen, the Comm and Nav button. Now, if you look over here, on my Comm radios, it will do the same thing. I can affect that reading, and if I move it, oh, let's go down, because it's going to be less to get up. It's pretty quick, though. You can see it will carry over to the previous or next numbers. What's gone on there? Let me just make sure this is behaving correctly. If not, I'll troubleshoot this. Yeah, there you go. It's carried over to 123. So if I go back up now, it should carry over. Comms are a little bit more complicated because you've got a lot more numbers. But it's doing fractions and carries. 124. Keep going up. As you can see, I can affect this pretty quickly. So I'm in 400s just to show you. 500s, 600s, 7, 8, and we should get 125. 125. Yeah, 125. So you can see it carries over. So there you go. Hit that button again. We can change our nav frequencies. What about swapping them over? Better show you this. So we go to settings. Just use my mouse for this. Settings, make sure you're in controls and keyboard, and it's the profile was set up. Just going to type in here again, frequency. I've got my selector on nav. Just type in frequency. So just show you on screen, I've got the selector set to nav there, the button. So it's on nav, not comm. We should have a swap button. Frequency swap. There you go. It's got X on there, but there's a swap button, which you can see there on screen, next to your common nav button. Gonna click in there and start scanning. And now I've hit that swap button. For your comm frequency, just click on this X to clear that. And scroll right to the top till you see radio again. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. And under comms, you've got COM 1 swap. You've got it twice. It seems to swap each time I do this. What I would do, people, press the button, as I'm showing you on screen there. I'm going to put it back into COM now. And COM 1 swap. I'm going to go, click in there, click swap. And also this one. Because sometimes it doesn't pick up on one of them. You have to do it on... I don't know why that happens. But I just set it to both of them. COM 1 swap. Just to be safe. Because I've set it to one. I've had to come back and change it to the other for it to work. What this will do. If we go back. Resume. It's getting quite advanced now. I'm in COM. Watch this figure here. If I've set this up correctly. It swaps over. So I'm now affecting the one... Is that 327? I'm now selecting, affecting this button. If I select that button again, swap, I've now got that 125. No, it's 127, I think. 125, as you can see. So that's swapping those over. If I press the button for between COM and nav, watch this button now. I can switch my navs over. And there you go. I'm able to select, as you can see there, swapping over. So if you're setting a comm frequency, we can do that now. Why not? Frequency 110. Won't take a moment. 110. Now you can get more advanced with this frequency knob. I won't do in this video. That's going to probably be for a more advanced video where you can put it into megahertz and kilohertz. Doesn't seem to do it at the moment. So we're going to have to set that up if we want that to take effect, just to make it a little bit quicker. That's actually the frequency for Leeds Bradford, both runways. So there you go, we got that set up. Oh, I'll tell you what, look, why not? You know this CDI button down here? Shall we set this up as a last thing? This is getting quite advanced, but I want to switch between GPS and localizer 1. So when I do have a frequency set up, I can actually switch to localizer 1 to do an ILS landing type thing. Let's go to settings. And for this one, go to controls. And I'm going to make this the last control. This will get you up and running at least. And give you most of the autopilot functions. I do believe approach mode is working fine. I'm going to go search by inputs. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And we're going to type in toggle GPS. So toggle. Oh, it's up there. Save me time. And GPS. Toggle GPS. What will come up, it's only one entry that will come up, is toggle GPS drives N1, nav1. I'll show you on screen. There's a localizer button. It's above the approach button. We're going to use that. Click in start scanning. Press that localizer button. Hey presto. This is brilliant. Such an ingenious device this, I've got to say. Very impressed by it. Watch down here now, people. I'm in GPS mode. Click that localizer button. I'm in localizer 1 mode. And as you can see, because we're on the runway, our course deviation line is matched up. I'll do a quick test flight to show you all this in a moment. But there you go. Switching between localizer 1 and GPS. My friends, that's as far as I want to take this video in terms of settings. Let's now go for a test flight. And there we go, we'll go for a quick test flight to test all these settings, shall we? I'll show you a picture on screen of the MIAP Pro. I won't highlight any buttons because I'll be using a lot of them. Just utilising the altitude knob to get that autopilot assigned altitude to 2,000 feet. Heading, I've got it nearly synced there. I'm just going to move it around a little bit. There we go. You're probably best using the heading knob in conjunction with a controller heading to get that around quicker. If it was down to the south there, it's easier to use a controller to get that heading bug moving quicker. Once you've got it into heading mode, it's very smooth to use on the MIAP Pro to change your heading. Very nice to use, in fact. Flight level change. I'm going to press the IAS knob. As you can see, flight level change has come up. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to increase that figure next to the FLC to 74 knots. So that when we press autopilot, we should be climbing at 74 knots. Just make sure on the configuration of my aircraft, that's absolutely fine. We don't need flaps there. Gonna throttle up. Famous last words. Throttle all the way up. Release the parking brake. Oh, a lot of torque there. It's coming to the left. It's coming to the right, rather. Just using my triggers. Just using the Xbox controller. Not very skilled with the Xbox controller, guys, so bear with me. I don't use it often enough. There we go. We're up in the air. Just going to trim up a wee bit. That will do. I'm going to press the autopilot button and the heading hold button so that it syncs to our heading. You can see the autopilot's bringing us down to 74 knots via our flight level change commands, and it's following our heading. Just put you to this view. There we go, just zoom in a little bit. Obviously the mouse is still very finicky on Xbox, so bear with me if I'm doing this carefully. What we'll do, I'm just going to change that. I'm in nav mode for my frequency. I want to get to 1110. Actually, if I swap it over, because it's almost there, 1110.9.90. I'll swap that over now to make that active. The Leeds Bradford frequency should come up, which I believe it has. And we can carry on. We've got to our 2,000 feet altitude, as you can see, under flight level change mode. And we're following heading mode. Where are we in conjunction with Leeds Bradford? Have we just taken off? How far behind? Oh, we'll get out a little bit further, people, then I'll turn back and try and do some kind of ILS landing. Okay, so you join me along my journey. Leeds Bradford is some way in the distance there. I believe it's some way, just about see it over here. So what I'm doing, I'm just getting to these waterways here, and then I'll turn my heading using the heading knob. And this is where it can be a bit more beneficial to have heading control. So moving your heading knob via a control. Because as you see, it's quite slow with the MIAP. It's nice when you're in this mode and you can fine-tune it to move. Oh, using it, so you can move it. You can fine-tune it. You can move nice and fluidly using that knob to get it all the way around to this figure. Get off this figure here. It's going to take some work. I'll tell you what. We'll attempt that now. So I'm just going to move that knob around. You can get it there. It's just more beneficial, perhaps, to use heading mode change, or utilizing heading mode rather. Heading select, increase, decrease, using a controller. See, I'm getting it there, so it is possible. Actually, it's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. There we go. So we get it to around there, heading back towards Leeds Bradford. So I'm just doing that with my MIAP. And I'm going to press the localizer button to bring up localizer 1. Oh, we need to come to our right. That's our course deviation line saying that to line up with this runway, you need to come this way. And we're going to encourage that in. There's our glide slope indicator, so we've got some time. I'm going to slow my aircraft down. About 2,200. Or so. That will do. That will do. So I'm just going to move my heading more to the left there. As you can see, it's very versatile, isn't it? And the approach button below the localizer button is set up by default, by the way. If you had the Flight Sim 2020 keyboard selected, press approach now. Localizer's gone green. It's now locking on. I'm not doing that. It's locking on to our localizer to bring us back round. So the autopilot's locked on now to the runway localizer. As soon as that glide slope comes down, you can see glide slope is white here. As soon as the indicator comes down, it should bring us down under autopilot control. Let's decrease my throttle. Just showing you what you can do with this unit, with these settings we've just set up. So you can do all this, which is fantastic. I've got to say, next to you don't get a readout, it's a small unit. Next to my multi-panel and radio panel, this is the next best thing. I've reviewed a few of these different types of units. The versatility, and I'm only showing you partly what it can do, of this unit is absolutely brilliant. For Xbox, it's a must-have. If you can get hold of them, I know they're in very hot demand at the moment, especially this time of year. So as you can see, I'm just decreasing my throttle to get myself into flaps range. When the glide slope indicator comes down, it's moving down now. I'll go to flaps stage 1. In fact, oh no, I've moved my mouse. I forgot with Xbox you can't do that, can you? Use this controller here just to show you my flaps. I've got a, well, it's just my D-pad down for stage 1 flaps. Or to increase and decrease flaps, my D-pad up and down. I'll put it into 10 degrees of flaps now. Glide slope indicator's moving down. Still under autopilot control. We're going to land on that runway. We'll just let this lock on. And then it'll bring us down for a landing. Listen, people, video's long enough. Now, yeah, these videos are quite long. It's not to everyone's taste, but a lot of you seem to appreciate that. Do let me know. Do you want me to shorten these, or are these the right length? I'm trying to go slowly, step by step, so that newbie pilots can follow along. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Give this a go if you own a MIAP Pro. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon.